Steve and I are cousins. We're very close in age. I'm actually 3 days older than Steve, but we started school together. However, the teachers, were kind of bright. They were bright enough to see that two Rummler boys in the same class may be bringing a problem they didn't need. Thus, each of us was placed in a different first grade class. One day, when I got out of class first and was waiting to walk home with Steve, we lived quite close to each other and we walked home together, I noticed a speck of blood on the tip of my pointer finger. I obviously wasn't bleeding to death, and I couldn't even remember how I was wounded, but it was of some interest, and when Steve got out of class, I decided to share my newfound wound. So I held up my finger and said to Steve, "Look, Steve, blood." I was quite surprised at Steve's reaction. He looked with horror at me and started to cry. Well, his empathetic reaction was nice, but totally unnecessary. What happened next was even more surprising. He started running down the hall toward the door. Well, regardless of his actions, I still planned on going home with him, so, I started after him. By the time I got outside, Steve was in the crosswalk. He was still crying. The crossing guard was pawing through his hair. Well, by the time I got to the crossing, Steve was long gone down the other side. So, still in a run and heading for home. I followed. When I got to Steve's and into the house, what did I see? You guessed it. Steve was still crying, and his mom was carefully examining his head. What happened? Well, you probably already figured it out. When I pointed my finger at Steve, it looked like I was pointing at his head. My exclamation of blood brought him to believe that his head was bleeding. Steve perceived that he was wounded, and regardless of the lack of pain and the fact that no one was verifying the problem, Steve believed that he was hurt. To Steve, he had in fact a bleeding hurt. That is an excellent example of the power of perception. Remember two things about perception. Number one, what people believe, what they perceive, is to them fact. And two, they operate, as Steve did, from their facts. On the job as the leader, I like to get to know my people, and I'd like to get them to know me. It makes a significant difference in perceptions. And that affects many. For example, when I relax my face, I have a natural frown. When I'm tired, that frown actually deepens. If you made a presentation to me, say at 8 o'clock in the morning, and about 10, I come out of my office and walk by you in the hall, and I have my tired frown on my face, like, I'd been late for a board meeting the night before, and I'd also just received a phone call from my wife telling me that one of the kids was just in a fender bender. As we pass, I glance at you. I don't say anything, and I hurry down the hall. What do you think? If we don't know each other, you might think your presentation was not so good, and that could have a lot to do with your whole day. However, if you know me, and you know me well, you might just figure I was having a tough day. In fact, you might ask if everything is okay, or if there was a problem, with the presentation that you'd made. If asked, I would respond with something that would let you know, what was going on, and that the whole problem was not you. As a result, one day would not be negatively impacted. Since many things influence our perception, the more comfortable we are with perception clarification, the more smoothly things go. I have a number of perception stories that are real to share, but that haven't got time for them here. But the thing to remember is that perception plays a strong part in our lives and into communication, which, by the way, communication is our next topic. Hope to see you then.